Model is very smart. Take any AI model from any provider, but it's more like a faucet of intelligence. But for a model to be useful as an agent, you need a harness. But what the hell is a harness? Human in the Loop starts now.
Get this man a trademark for faucet of intelligence. Brilliant, man.
Faucet
What's up,
of
Sash?
intelligence. Good, brother. How you doing?
Doing good, man. We
Yeah.
had some AV problems from hell there. So
Oh my God, yes.
oh my gosh. We'll save that. We'll pass all those logs over to AI. You handle
Yeah.
it. But man,
We'll
how you doing,
figure
man?
out what happened.
Yeah.
I'm good, brother.
everything.
How's your week going? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday as always. It's good, man. We're gonna talk about this more later, so I don't want to spoil it next week, but it's been fun. And I've been playing AI with video production and
Yeah.
becoming a little
Excited.
YouTuber, but I think it's going well because of my harness.
Yeah.
How's your week been,
I
man?
think week's been good, lots of things going on. I've been trying a new harness. I think we spoke about me trying out Hermes. It's been very
Yeah.
interesting. And yeah, I've been digging into harnesses for a bit just to kind of understand the lay of the land and also really kind of figure out what makes agents usable. How can you trust an agent? How can you make an agent capable? And clearly, it's not just the model.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about that a couple of months ago, and I think we hinted at last week. It's you take the harness for granted when you're in like a
Yeah.
Claude Code or a Codex or any of these frontier models. Like I never think about the harness, right? I just
Yeah.
expect it to do the thing. And then as soon as you move to anything away from it, whether you're hitting an API directly, going to a smaller model, man,
Yeah.
it's a big change. It's a big change.
Yeah. And also, it's almost the harness is, like you said, people take for granted. And when you change harnesses sometimes with the same model, you see a large difference in capability as well.
Massive.
So we're gonna break down what a harness is and
Yeah.
how to think about harnesses.
So
You know?
tell us about it, man.
Yeah. Yeah, harness is basically an app, and it's the environment in which the model functions. So if you think about an agent is like an autonomous AI worker that you can give a goal to, has very specific instructions and context to execute that goal. But the agent can't be just the model. The agent is a model plus a harness, and the harness is the environment in which the model functions. So it's basically the app. So when you chat with Claude or ChatGPT, the chat app is a harness. A Claude Code is a harness. OpenClaw and Hermes are examples of always on harnesses. And what does the harness actually give in terms of capability to the model? Tools. You can plug in ways of using tools and connecting to different kinds of data. Like in Claude, you have connectors, right? Those connectors are the tools provided by the harness. Then you can have memory. You can connect it to your files and folders. Like in Claude Code, it can build MD files and store memory. And you can also have skills, the ability to use skills. Skills are capability on demand for an agent. So without a harness, an agent is not very useful. You can't really have an agent without a harness.
It's almost just like a chatbot, right?
It's basically a chatbot.
If even a chatbot.
Yeah. And before Claude Code came about, everything was just chat. You and I were just using Claude and ChatGPT and chat, and that was the harness. It wasn't very capable. It had some tools. It had web search. It had deep research. You could connect it to your connectors where your data lives, but it wasn't able to execute multi-step kind of task where you had to stop and reason. So a more complex harness like Claude Code or Codex or even OpenClaw and Hermes provide that runtime, which is basically the environment, which can connect the model to things like tools, memory, skills, and scheduler. And the model knows to go out and use these things to accomplish tasks. And that is, yeah.
And it does that through context, right?
Yes. It does that through context. It's programmed also to know that it has to use skills when they're available. And the harness tells it that, hey, you've got these tools. You've got ability to run a scheduler, like you have these skills installed. So that environment in which a model can just drop in and become very capable is basically the harness. And there are different kinds of harnesses. We all started with chat. Chat is a harness. Chat is basically the most simplest version of it. You ask question, it answers. It can search the web. There's not much to break in that. It's very simple. And then next level up from chat, you go into a session-based agent harness, which is Claude Code. Chris, I mean, you and I have been using Claude Code for months, and it is very capable. And one of the reasons why it's capable is because it has the ability to pull tools, run skills, even spawn sub-agent, and run tasks in a loop. These are things capabilities that the harness provide. And
Yeah.
Chris, you and I, we've been talking about getting into open source and installing our model. And then we started thinking about, hey, how do we use this? How do we build agents?
Right.
Um,
And I think so much of it, right? We think about, I remember when I first started in Claude, the idea of like building an agent. Because you hear everyone talk about agent, but I think the way that the industry speaks about agent is not really what you're building in Claude, right? The way that Claude defines an agent. Because all it is an MD file, and it can't really do anything outside that harness.
Yeah. And let's say if we install, buy some beefy hardware, throw in a 4 billion parameter model, open source, you can't connect it to Claude Code. Claude Code can only work with Claude. So you need some kind of a harness. And the next level up from something like Claude Code, which is a session agent, is an always-on harness, which is an agent that runs on a schedule. It wakes up on a schedule, reads a task list, and accomplishes. And examples like that of that are Hermes and OpenClaw. And if you run an open source model, you can hook them up into Hermes and OpenClaw and build your own agents. I think, Chris, you got me onto after you, I started with always on agents. We started with OpenClaw. Both of us are now in Hermes.
Didn't take me long to move over to Hermes. And I think it seems to be pretty common these days from what I'm reading on Reddit and your other highly trusted internet sites.
Yeah, always trusted.
Always trusted. Always on. Always trusted.
Always on. There we go. One thing I've noticed as you climb up the complexity of these harnesses, like you go from chat to session agent to always on, it gets complex in terms of the stuff it can do, the tools it has connected to, and sometimes it gets more fragile. Like OpenClaw, we had so many issues with OpenClaw. It would just die silently on a task in the background. You never know what's going on. And you have to enable traceability and figure out what's going on with it. So the fragility also climbs with these harnesses. That's what I've seen. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, for one, in a way, I almost think of it as like the reverse journey from like software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, right? Because you want an always on because you have control. It can run on your schedule, right? It lives on a machine that you own. It can plug into whatever, I shouldn't say whatever plug in the harness at once. It's going to plug into whatever model at once, but like you have to own that infrastructure. You can do Claude Code a decent amount, right? Without having to actually like run it in a terminal. Anthropic gives you the ability to schedule routines that they own the infrastructure for. But like with anything, the more flexibility you have, the more things you can do with it.
Yeah.
But the more responsibility you have to maintain it, right? Like you and I have to update Hermes, and I can't remember exactly what it is, but I've made some changes to the repo where I forked it. And so I went to not fork in the way that like,
public fork.
Yeah, an actual fork. So I went to go update it, and it was like, hey, wait a minute, we can't just do a safe update. And of course now I'm like, yeah, man, I can't just get AI to do that. I have to do this myself. Like, so, well, I'll figure that out in 3 to 5 business weeks.
I've run into the same thing. And I think the point you make is when you want that complexity, you want that capability, you have to be responsible for that infrastructure and make sure that it's working constantly. That's one thing. The second is the more you customize it. Some of these always on harnesses like Hermes and OpenClaw, they're open source for a reason.
Right.
You could clone it, make a
Right.
version of it. That customization also adds more fragility. For
Yep.
example, my Hermes install has GBrain, Gary Ten's graph-based brain plugged into it. Two repos built into one, packaged. So now I know kind of what's in there, sort of. I don't clone code. So I have to make sure that it's working. It's capable, but it has a lot of issues. So fragility climbs when the complexity of the harness is climbed. And there's a bunch of types of harnesses available for different jobs, right? Chat, every provider has a chat harness. Then you have terminal and IDEs, which are the development environment, like Cloud Code, Codex, OpenCode, Cursor, Replit. There's so many. And then you also have harnesses that run on your machine, like Codex, Cloud Code are one of the examples. You can even run Hermes OpenClaw. And then they always on harnesses like Hermes and OpenClaw run on a scale. There's so much you can do with it. And the point is, without the harness, you can't really build an agent. And the model pretty much cannot do a lot without beyond just answering your questions and answers. And this is one interesting number I found. There was a control study where it actually said with the right harness, the capability of the model and the agent you build with that model increased 8 times, which means the harness is actually the thing. The environment is the thing that adds capability to your agent. And that's something really important to keep in mind. If you go on YouTube and Google, look at harness engineering, there are tons of people talking about now harness engineering. How do you build your own harness?
Yep.
Yeah.
It,
And
you know how I'm reading this, Sash? It just sort of like clicked with me, given that the harness is everything around the model.
yes,
Kind of sounds a lot like RAG or GPT 3 years ago.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And so RAG, retrieval augmented generation, essentially when ChatGPT first came out, right, it was great. It was trained over the internet, but it was only trained up to this date,
certain
right? 6 or 7 months in the past. And every customer that I talked to, just like everybody else, was like, oh my gosh, I want ChatGPT to answer questions about my data, about my company's corpus of data. How can I do that if it's private and was trained up to that? And the answer was retrieval augmented generation, right? How you can ground the model in your data, or you can pre-process your prompts to pass in you are a customer service agent, be polite, etc. That's how we surround to that. It feels like harness is just the same, but for agents.
Yeah, it's kind of a harness can have RAG built into it as
Right.
well. And then you can have like harness with GraphRag, which is GBrain, what I use. And I think these are that environment, it kind of allows it to be the way I kind of see it is I love the Inspector Gadget analogy, exactly. And it had all these tools. And then the model, think about the model just sitting in an Inspector Gadget kind of environment where it has the harness gives it all of these tools to use and be capable. So, yeah, man, I think it's been an interesting kind of deep dive into understanding how harnesses work. And at some point, I think you and I are probably going to think about building.
That's a big question there, right? Like,
isn't it?
Do you see that as a well-adopted future where large organizations initially, and brings it down, are going to start building their own harness so that they can run these lower cost, non-frontier models?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like that would be a trend, right? Because the risk around frontier models, the cost, the geopolitical risk with frontier models are increasing, right? If I was a $500 million business, I would be thinking, hey, how do I protect myself against that risk? Which means open source models and possibly your own harness. Right. Also, I don't know how you feel about it, but sometimes I feel like even in Claude Code, I had a better interface to interact with, or I had certain features that would make my workflow better. Same with OpenClaw and Hermes. That makes me think, should we invest time and money into actually building what our harness looks like, a very personalized thing? I don't know. Maybe it's a good experiment to run as like builders, but I think companies are going to start thinking about that too.
Yeah. And as I'm thinking about it, I bet they're already happening, right? Like I think
Yeah.
about customers or individuals who are building AI solutions inside like Microsoft Foundry. In
Yeah.
essence, you're kind of surrounding that with a harness, right? Because you have to
Yeah.
connect external data. You're going to get to choose your model. You can swap out model that you want, but unless you surround that with tools, skills, capabilities, workflow, your data, again, like all you're using is the model.
Yeah. Yeah. And everywhere you create agents, right, you have a harness to play with. And then it'll work for a lot of use cases, almost everything. Something like Foundry is extremely capable. And there's
Right.
so many things you can do to build out not just a harness, but use the capabilities in it to build agents that have their own harnesses. And it works really great. So yeah, this is also a very evolving space. As you can see in the past, I I teach a course on Maven, and you guys know, and in the past 2 to 3 months, I've seen harness engineering courses. So now software engineers are getting into, we're now, okay, we're building agents. We know how to build agents. We know how to fine tune LLMs. Now let's build our own harness. So to your point of enterprises thinking about building their own harnesses, coming. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels inevitable.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Harness engineering. At some point, we need to talk about loop engineering on here
We do.
too. But those are
Yeah.
the big ones. Boris from Anthropic is all he does, but
Yep.
another
Yeah.
time.
We
So
we went from prompt engineering, context engineering, like then we had agentic
yeah,
workflow engineering, loop engineering, and now harness engineering.
lots of
So
engineering.
lots of engineering.
Need a VP of engineering to oversee all of this or something.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
cool. We're changing everything next week.
Yep.
Everything about human in
Yep.
the loop is changing. Sash, what are we
Yes.
changing, man?
Yeah, man. I think what we're going to do is we're going to go longer so we have more stuff to talk about, land concepts comfortably, and be more useful to our audience. We're trying out a new time as well, midweek, Wednesdays. Hopefully, people can, have some time out of their day to join in and just watch us, learn a thing or two while you're having your lunch. So that's what's changing in terms of schedule and duration. We're also streaming on YouTube starting week.
Everything. LinkedIn to YouTube, 15 minutes to 25 minutes, Wednesdays, 2 p.m. And we're going to start next week with a YouTube live about, I guess, sort of YouTube? Not really about YouTube, but just about content generation. So think like AI for marketing. I've been doing a ton with this lately. Whether it's building YouTube videos, but building software demos at scale. And I've been able to kind of get down my process where I can go from like a rough idea to like a fully finished demo, my face, my voice, the demo, script, a couple hours, man. And it involves 10 minutes for me and like $3.
I cannot wait to see all that work you do, which is super cool from video production, going from generating content to editing to actually having a polished video. Love it, dude. I cannot wait.
Can't wait, man. Good stuff. Always a pleasure, Sash.
See you next week, brother.
Man. Cheers.